So there is a big difference between being seen by somebody and being known by somebody. Now, in one of the previous videos, I talked to you guys about vulnerability, but I think a lot of us in this day and age are mistaking vulnerability and transparency. Transparency being seen, but vulnerability is being known. And I can tell you that I have dealt with this a lot in my life, and it's something that I am still working on to this day. But in this video, I'm gonna take you through what is the difference between the two. What is the difference between being seen and actually being known? That's what we're gonna be talking about in this video today, and I can't wait to get into it. So let's go. Hey guys, it is your girl, Nay. Welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to see you guys here again. So happy. If you are new here, this is a channel where we talk about how to become authentic and intentional in our lives, and I take you through my own journey of how I am doing that, because I am absolutely on the journey with you guys to do the same thing. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that I probably have been dealing with for a quite long time. So you probably don't know this, but I actually record a lot of videos that I actually haven't uploaded yet. And there's this one video that I went back and I was watching, and I was talking about how I had gone out with a friend and my sister, and I had mentioned to him, I was like, you know what, like, hey, I feel like I might have like a issue with intimacy. I don't know, I feel like I might have an issue with that. And he was like, what? No, not you. And I was like, no, I actually feel like I do. And my sister, who was sitting there, and we had talked a lot about that, and she was like, she might. And I was just thinking, I was like, at that, like, just for some context, I think that one of the main reasons why I had said that I had like such intimacy problems was because, well, this is one of the reasons. I would interact with people, and like for the first time, and I tell my sisters this all the time, but like I would, like, for the first time I would interact with somebody, I would like absolutely be loving it and like be completely feel like myself, and just like the conversation would be so good, and I would just be able to just really connect with them so well. And then after that, I would feel so afraid to connect with them again, because I would think that it was just in my mind that they would all of a sudden think that I wasn't as whatever they had thought I was in the first interaction. Wasn't as cool, I wasn't as whatever it might be, whatever the high thoughts that they might have thought in the first interaction, I always felt like it would have been like that in the next. I was really afraid to get close to people, because I felt that they would not really accept the real me. And I think that what I discovered is that there is a big difference between being transparent and being vulnerable. Huge difference. And I think that those two have a lot of similarities, and they can kind of sometimes be used interchangeably, but there are some huge differences between the two, and I want to explain those to you. So imagine, for an analogy, imagine you are going to a museum, and a lot of museums, especially if it's like an expensive or fancy museum, they have like maybe these ropes around the exhibit or the artifact that you're possibly looking at. And maybe sometimes even along with that rope, they also have this glass box that the artifact is sitting in. Now, that glass box and the rope are there to protect the artifact. That is saying that, hey, this is a delicate item. This is something that, you know, maybe we only have one of this thing. Maybe this is from, you know, thousands of years ago, and we only have this one item. And if this thing gets lost or this thing gets damaged, then we do not have a replacement for it. So we cannot have any fingerprints on it. We can't have anybody ruining it in any type of way. We need to keep it safe. So they put it in the glass box. And I think that a lot of us, we treat ourselves as if we are the artifact that needs to be absolutely protected. Because in reality, we're one of a kind, and there is no replacement for us. But I think that the difference between us and the artifact is that we were wired to connect with people. We're wired to make sure that we are with one another. And I think that even you might be listening to this and saying like, you know what, like, you're saying that I need to connect well with people, but I actually don't feel like I'm fine by myself. I don't need to. I would ask you, why then does it, and if you actually take this and think about it without just like thinking, like just saying it quickly, why does it then hurt when we might get snubbed by somebody, or when somebody breaks our heart, or when we might share something with someone and we might not get the reaction that we're looking for? Why does that hurt a little bit? It hurts because it's a desire that we have to connect. The artifact isn't hurt when somebody is not touching it, when they have the rope and they're filling a glass in front of them and the person isn't able to touch it as they're looking at them. They're not feeling hurt. But we as humans, because we are wired for connection, we do feel hurt when we don't feel seen and we don't feel known by other people. That is just a natural part of the way we were created. It's just natural for us. So we do feel that way. So how do you actually practice then true vulnerability? Like I showed you in this video up here what vulnerability is and why we actually need it. And I gave you a couple of basic tips, but I want to go into that a little bit further in this video because I know that it's just so... we're just wired for this. We're wired to connect with people, and especially I've gotten even comments on the attachment style video about wanting love and wanting connection but not knowing how, because you just have not experienced that in the past. I want to give you some tips on how do you actually practice vulnerability and authenticity. Some real practical ones. The first one is that vulnerability encourages conversation. So for example, this is what transparency might look like after a really bad day at work. Oh man, my boss is so annoying. Like I had this project due and I didn't get it done on time, and I told him the reason why, but he didn't want to listen to it, and I don't know, it was just really annoying and frustrating, but it's whatever. I don't even care about it. I don't even care. You already saying I don't care at the end of it already tells me that you don't want to talk about this anymore. So the most that I can do, or the most that someone can do on the receiving end of that, is be like, okay, because already saying whatever is you're shutting yourself off to feeling anything deeper. More so even shutting anybody else off to be able to speak into that, or to help you feel deeper, or to even comment like, oh wow, really? That's really sad. Like, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. You're like, no, I'm fine. I don't really care about it. I mean, it's like whatever. Like, they're annoying and it's whatever. Like that shuts it off. And it's like, okay, like, never mind then. Like, it's like the person could feel shut down. Like after trying to maybe help out in the situation and you say you don't care. There's no way to go deeper into that. So that's transparency. I know exactly what happened at your job. I know that your boss is annoying. I know that you had a bad day at work. I know these facts, but I don't really know how you actually feel about it, besides the fact that I'm insinuating, I'm getting the gist that you're annoyed and frustrated. You haven't really spoken to that. But vulnerability in the same circumstance would be, yeah, man, I had like a really bad day at work today. My boss, he's not really hearing me. I had these other deadlines, and honestly, I'm so frustrated by it. I feel like I am being treated like a machine, and honestly, like, this is a little bit embarrassing to say, especially because I've spent years in this career and also like years in school, but I also sometimes feel like I've chosen the wrong career. Like, I feel like I am like in this bubble that I can't get out of, and I don't know what to do about it. And I really just like, I question that some days. I question whether I'm supposed to be here. That leaves room for me now to go and encourage you through that, or even comment on that. And it's not saying that now you have to know every single thing, even every single thought of how you're feeling. You're just leaving this space open for me now to come in and speak to it. You're not shutting the conversation down. And I think a lot of times we mistake, and I can completely understand how you saying all that about your job and saying all that about your boss in the first example can feel like you're being so vulnerable. It can feel like you're like giving yourself, and it's like, well, if the person really wanted to speak into it, they would. But it's like, actually, it's a little bit hard when you shut it down like that, because now the other person can feel like they can easily be stepping into something where they're going to be rejected as well. But that vulnerability is saying, come in and see what I'm feeling. You can offer me support and I will accept it. I might not feel better immediately. I'm not asking you to do that, but I'm at least accepting it, and I'm opening up my heart to receive the guidance that you have to give, or even the ability to just sit here with me and hold space for my emotions. I'm giving you that ability to be able to do that. That's how you receive love and are able to be seen the way you actually desire to be seen. That's vulnerability. And that leads me to my next point, which is number 2. Vulnerability uses emotion words. Vulnerability uses emotion words, whereas transparency is facts, 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 facts. Vulnerability will tell you, I'm feeling frustrated, or man, I'm so embarrassed actually to say this. Embarrassed is like, oh, that's a vulnerability word. That's a vulnerability word. Or, oh, I'm sad. Or, oh my gosh, I'm really excited about this. I'm really passionate about this. That's vulnerability as well. Vulnerability uses those emotion words. And I can't say that at first this can feel extremely uncomfortable if you have not been used to using emotions before or expressing your emotions. If you're more on the dismissive type or more on the avoidant type, fearful avoidants deal with this as well. Because yeah, I can just say that a lot of fearful avoidants are so good at like giving the information that seems like they're being super vulnerable, but they actually are just giving information that they don't feel vulnerable at all. They're just like giving that information. I can testify to this. Just giving information and they don't feel like they're being vulnerable. But when it comes to like the nitty-gritty of you asking them questions, it's like, turn it right back to you, turn it right back to you, turn it right back to you. And dismissives do this a lot as well, where it's like they don't really like to get too deep into themselves. They'd rather turn it back around. So that's why I know that this can be extremely uncomfortable if you're not used to it. But just because you're not used to it and just because it's uncomfortable, it does not mean that it is bad. Just because something is your norm doesn't mean that it's a good thing. It just means that it's something you've been conditioned to experience for the majority of your life, or maybe a certain point of your life. But it doesn't mean that that's actually something that you should be continuing for the rest of your life. And this, if you are feeling uncomfortable with vulnerability, but you're still trying it, you're headed on the right path and it won't feel uncomfortable forever. I promise you. The third tip to learn how to be more vulnerable and less just transparent is to reframe how you think of rejection. And I know this is something that I think has literally helped me to get from maybe my negative 50% before maybe even last year this time to like where I am now, is me reframing or even understanding what I thought rejection was and me reframing it. Now, rejection isn't easy for anybody. It does not feel good. It does not feel good. I'm not going to sit here and say rejection is fun, because it's just not. That's not what I'm saying about reframe rejection. What I'm saying about rejection is, what are you now making the rejection, the person not responding the way that you desire them to respond, what are you making that mean about you? What are you making that mean about you? Are you making that mean that I am not worthy to be accepted, or I'm defective, or I am not enough, or I am not capable of being loved, or whatever it might be? What are you making their rejection mean about you? See, when you tackle this thought and you tackle this mindset that you might have about what you might be thinking of this interaction, and then you realize that it actually doesn't mean that. Them choosing to do whatever they want or reacting in whatever way they want to react doesn't mean that I am all of a sudden unworthy. So I can now go into this and enter into being a little bit more vulnerable and saying something about my emotions, my feelings, and not feel like what maybe their possible rejection is a reflection on me as a person. Fourth tip is that vulnerability does not mean, and this is especially for my anxious, preoccupied types, but it does not mean letting everybody touch you in every single way that they want and telling every single thing about you to every single person whenever you see them. It doesn't mean that. Vulnerability still requires wisdom. And I think a lot of this actually stems from a feeling of desperation, a feeling like I need to be seen so bad by somebody else. And a lot of it also really does stem from that. A lot of more anxious type don't really know what's actually happening in themselves because they're so focused on other people, on people pleasing, on making sure the other person is okay, or making sure the other person is not going to leave them or abandon them or reject them. So they are so focused on the other person that now they're in a place of feeling completely unseen and unknown and unrecognized and just misunderstood even, so much so because they are not even giving themselves that. So that's why it can come out like and like almost like word vomit, expressing so much of yourselves, because instead of coming from a place of desiring to be seen, it's more so coming from a place of proving that I am worth being seen. That's a little bit tough to hear, I know, and a little bit tough, but it's just something to bring awareness to. Like, am I telling these stories, or am I expressing myself vulnerably because I'm trying to prove that I'm worthy of being seen? Or am I expressing it just because I know that I'm worthy of being seen and I desire to express myself? Those are two very different things. We don't have to prove our worth to anyone, We have innate worth in ourselves by the one who created us. We have innate worth in us already. We don't have to prove ourselves. It's already been proven. It's literally already been proven on the cross. Like, literally, it's already been proven. So we don't have to prove that to anybody. So yeah. So going back to the museum example, an example of this would be, say you go into the museum and now they don't have the ropes on anymore and they don't have the glass thing. There are still, I would assume, there would still be some certain rules that would take place in that museum. They're not gonna now let 50,000, maybe 1 million people into the museum, into this one exhibit at the same time. They're not gonna do that. Or they're not gonna go and say, you know what, no rules, there are no rules. Everybody, free range, you can do whatever you want to. And now these kids are putting gum on the statue. Now they're running around it, maybe like they're knocking off the head. They're doing all of this crazy stuff. And they're like literally damaging the statue, and there's like no rules, and there's no one doing anything about it. I'm pretty sure that would not be the case. Vulnerability doesn't mean that you are now allowing people to come in and trash you, and you're now allowing everybody access to your heart. It doesn't mean that. It means you're still using wisdom. It means that you're still, now that person who is curating the museum or the director of the museum is setting rules. And if they see somebody who's now disobeying the rules that they've already set prior to, they're seeing somebody put gum or see somebody disrespect their property, guess what? They're gonna have the security guard come out and escort them out of the museum. That is what we need to do. When we see somebody coming in and they are not taking care of our heart, or they're not taking care of us, we need to give them grace, because everybody doesn't have, maybe they don't understand, they come from different upbringings, or definitely show them grace. But also, if they're not handling you right, don't allow them to continue to do it. Kindly escort them out. Kindly say, okay, you know what? At this point in time, I really realize that I just can't share these things with you. And that's okay. I still love you as a person, but I just realize I can't share these things with you. And that is okay. We have to still make sure we're protecting our hearts as well, but we're not blocking them up. We're not blocking them up. We're just setting boundaries to make sure that our hearts are protected, but not brick walls. And also not the glass, because that's not helpful either. So at the end of the day, transparency is good. It's definitely good, but it's not the full thing. We also want vulnerability. We don't want people to just know about us. We want people to know us. And that is what I encourage you to do. So I would challenge you guys this week to find one person that you can trust, that you find trustworthy in your life, that has proved themselves to be trustworthy to you, that's proved themselves to love you, and share something with them that might feel a little bit more vulnerable. I am so grateful for the comments that I receive from you all, and it means so much to know that I am helping you guys. And also just I can't wait to also see the growth that you guys have. I pray that you might even come back to see your comments and say, oh my gosh, I was dealing with vulnerability before. I was dealing with feeling like I wanted to love but didn't know how to express it, or feeling like I was dealing with not even understanding my emotions, and coming back and seeing your comments and like, I'm not there anymore. I'm so past that. I would love to see that growth in you guys. And I already am seeing in so many of you guys' emails. I love reading those. But yeah, anyway, I love you guys so much. And I can't wait to see you guys again in the next one. I love you. Okay. Mwah. Bye, guys.